Ready or not?
Yeah,
Here
right?
we come.
This smells amazing, by the way.
Oh, good.
Look at this, Dave. I don't know if Dave and Sarah, I don't know if you can see this. I'll bring it in closer to the. You see those beautiful lees on top there?
Oh, wow.
Yep. Yep.
That's looking gorgeous.
That is unfiltered.
That is.
Just like this conversation.
Yes, I may need to warn you that my radar as far as cussing and not cussing may be off a little bit.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm kidding.
If you're not 21, you probably, or older, you probably shouldn't be tuning in right now.
We're going to try this. Tell me if this works.
We're live, baby. We are live and unfiltered.
Still hear me?
So, hi guys. It's Dave and Sarah with Bells Up. You're joining us for another episode of Wine Down with Bells Up. And with our esteemed
and slightly crazy.
Yeah, totally normal, never does anything wacko. Guest, Joe Knox, right over there, that guy.
Hi, everybody.
So we're excited to have you here, Joe. Thank you for joining us. Joe, for lack of a better word, is a real Renaissance man.
Safe to say. That is very safe to say. Very safe to say.
So we were talking about how do I even introduce you and still leave 30 minutes for us to actually have a conversation. But you're currently the general manager of the Portland Wine Bar, which is at the moment not open because none of us are allowed to be open right now. You're also a sommelier.
Yep.
You're also a wine educator and a tour guide and a general bon vivant. So.
Ooh, that sounds way better.
Word for this show.
My dad used to say, "Jack of all trades, master of none."
Yes,
I like that too.
Yes, we need those.
But I'll take bon vivant any day of the week. Sounds way better than Jack of all trades.
Well, so and that is our capsule. Wow, you got that off without cutting. That's
he's a pro. What do you expect?
He is a pro.
I can't even tell you how many times that I forget about the old Somm certification stuff of cutting the foil appropriately, presenting it. I work at a wine bar nowadays. I slice it, take it off, or I'll pull it off. Let's start pouring wine because.
Which, let's be honest, Joe. I mean, half your decision making as far as which wines you bring in come down to how easy did you make it for me as the person doing the pouring to get it open and not cut myself or have something really bad happen?
I will say I will take a bottle any way it comes, whether it's in foil or not in foil. But I'm a marketer by training. I was a PR director for a hospital for many, many years, and I love good marketing. For me, when I see a Bells Up label with the foil on top, Money Honey totally has this down pat. That's all I'm going to say.
You know who to suck up to. Yeah.
But what I love more than anything, and by the way, there may be a guest star of I think it's a 2015 coming later. I actually found I'm just going to go grab it. But I just love the labels. The gold for that special element, the deep blue, that just goes with everything that is Bells Up. I mean, Sarah, branding, I love it. That, I will tell you, when people don't know a lot about wine, and what I see at the bar all the time, if people don't know about wine, they go with what grabs the eye. And for me, your guys' story about a French horn player who ironically now lives on Bell Road, Bells Up Winery. It's like, oh my God, really? This stuff sells itself. And it doesn't help. It doesn't hurt that these are 90 plus point wines. I don't care what anyone says. I have never tasted anything sub 90s from you, period, end of sentence. That's just my opinion. And they're brilliant. So when you add all those, you got the trifecta. You got the story, you got the packaging, you got the phenomenal product. It's a trifecta in the wine world, which is why, you guys, other than being amazing humans, you guys are just one of my favorites to talk about. So.
Obviously, we had to write a really big check to get Joe to spend some time with us.
Huge. Huge.
I didn't know you were in marketing. Can you tell us your backstory and how you wound up in wine? Like it sounds like there were a couple of detours on the way.
So at 17 years old, I was in college, and there was a class called Introduction to Wine. I was at Sonoma State University in Rohnert Park, California. And I took this class thinking, because in the fine print, it said, this was like 100 years ago. And it said, may taste wine at wineries with parental permission. So I was like, oh, okay. And I talked to my mom, and mom was on board with it. And she goes, well, what do you think it is? I go, I think it's just, field trips to wineries, learning about the history of the region. And she's like, okay. I thought I was just going to be a cool 17-year-old going, hello, hi, my name is Joe. I look like I'm 12. Welcome to the winery. No. And so I actually thought it was just going to be an opportunity to sniff, taste, kind of rub shoulders with people who seem to really have it going on. If you go to any winery in Sonoma County or Napa or Willamette Valley or Walla Walla, the people who attend and show up at wineries look like they got their stuff together. I mean, you don't see people with tents and backpacks unless it's attached to a Range Rover or something like that. But I thought this is the type of people that I like. I mean, very knowledgeable, educated. There's some history and Latin involved in wine. I mean, it's just an amazing historical thing. And I'm a history geek. So that's where it originated. From there, I thought it was just going to be this have fun and drink wine. And whoa, I fell in love with wine. And, here we are 30 something years later, and I still haven't fallen out of love with wine. I like to say she is the one mistress in my life that has never let me down. She's hurt me a few times, but she's never let me down. And that I've never let down as well, because it is my privilege and it's like an honor to represent the quality that comes in a wine bottle. So fast forward from there, I ended up, I'm a baseball player. I needed to pay for college. So I signed up in the ROTC program. About that time, as I was graduating, Napa and Sonoma were doing that old early 90s heavy oak the wine program. And I am not a heavy oak wine. I believe that a grape is a piece of fruit, and the fruit should express itself in a glass more so than the oak barrel or the staves or the oak powder or whatever people are using today. So I was almost starting to fall out of love with wine. And then Uncle Sam said, hey, welcome to active duty. You now get to go abroad. So I was stationed in Germany, and then my eyes went bing. It was like, oh, this is what they mean by heritage wine.
Okay.
Old world wine style. And so I reconnected with my first love with wine, and it's an amazing adventure. And so then I got out of the military and I went and worked as a PR guy for a hospital. But while stationed abroad is when I started my Somm training, because you have some downtime, and nobody ever thinks, I mean, if you serve 20 years in the military, you get out at 40 something years old, you got plenty of time to have a second career. Yeah. What is the second career? I toyed with being a stockbroker. That's kind of what every military guy does, or work in insurance. And then the thing really hit me was studying wine. So and it was history, and it was living history. So that's really what happened. Got out, went and worked for the hospital, got my second certification when I was in Southern Oregon, working for a hospital down there. And I just kind of realized wine is where I want to be. One of the doctors that I would always do field trips for the hospital, and the hospital was very much, well, we need to keep the doctors and nurses over here, and maybe the janitors and such, and the frontliners over here. And I was like, no, if I'm doing tours, I'm doing it for everybody, because wine is for everybody. And, we would take photos. I'd have a cameraman. And one of the best photos I ever got was this wonderful man named Horatio. He was a janitor. I mean, 50 years old, just salt of the earth kind of guy. Family were migrant farm workers his whole life. And he was just a janitor. And he was in a photo with Dr. Raoul. And they were laughing. And they both had a glass of wine in their hand at one of the wineries in Southern Oregon. And the guy snapped this photo. And I took it back to the board, and I was like, this is why we do this.
Yeah.
Because you bring people together, and that's this is the equalizer. So that's kind of my story. Dr. Wilkes is the guy who said, "Hey man, why do you work for a hospital?" And I was like, "Excuse me?" He's like, "You're clearly way more passionate about wine." And that kind of set the ball rolling for me. And then I got out of the hospital world, went full-time in wine, moved up to Central Oregon, where I worked for a winery in Central Oregon, the only true Vitis vinifera winery in Central Oregon, and realized it's tough to carry on a 365-day-a-year job when there's 4 feet of snow on the ground. So I opted about 4 years ago to come to the North Willamette Valley and kind of settled in the Portland area, because I now have access to Chehalem Mountains, Ribbon Ridge, all of our Willamette Valley wines, and plus we're just a few scant hours away from Walla Walla, so, and the Gorge, and so that's my story in a nutshell. That's where it started.
Very cool.
Perfect.
Very cool. So then beyond that, it sort of sounds like that was your foundation for getting more into the wine education side of things, because I know that's a real passion for yours, is helping people, even newbies, right?
Yeah.
Get it, understand wine in an accessible way, not in a snob, because people hear Somm and they think,
Oh yeah.
ooh, like they think pinky in the air, nose there, and I know your approach is a lot more down to earth and accessible.
Totally.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. My belief, I will sum it up. While working at the Portland Wine Bar, I had this couple come in. They were really cool. They were from Hawaii. The husband was obviously on a business trip. He was like, this was him at the bar. It was ridiculous the whole time. And that's fine, because I get it. His wife was engaging. She was wonderful, asking all these great questions and kind of giving her the difference. Well, I haven't really had a lot of Pinot Noir, but I love Sangiovese. I love Tempranillo. I was like, oh my gosh, you're in the right area, because Pinot Noir, I like to say, is the French version, of Pinot, obviously. But if you like a good Italian wine, like a Sangiovese or a Nebbiolo, you're going to love Pinot, because it's the French equivalent, only done a little bit differently. Or if you love a Tempranillo, that's the Spanish version. So, and they are their own grape. I get that. But most everybody doesn't need to know the genus, the type, and the species. They just need to know, why is it called Tempranillo? Oh, that's just the type of grape. Well, what can I expect from it? Here's what you can expect. So long story longer, after we were done, I thought the husband was totally disconnected. 3 days later, he writes this most amazing Yelp review I've ever had in my career. Wow. And he's like, this guy's got it. This guy's got it. He takes the pretentiousness of wine that we see, and being that he has a house in Hawaii, a house in California, he knows Napa. He goes, Napa and Sonoma have great wines, but they're stuck in this pretentiousness that you don't even find in the old world. Mm-hmm. So for me, he says, Joe took it away, and that made me happy. Yeah. So that is what I want to do. I want to take that pinky in the air. I want to take the nose in the air, and I want to bring wine to us, real people who work hard. Yeah. And maybe they just need to know that Pinot Noir is an amazing grape with incredible history. But you know what? If you're partial to a Montepulciano, feel free. Let's do this. Yeah. Oh, you don't like Pinot Noir? You like something a little heavier? Well, let's go south and east. Let's go to the Rhone Valley. What do you like there? Oh, I love Syrah. Let me show you what Washington can do with Syrah, or Paso Robles, or even the Willamette Valley. Look what we can do here. So that's what I like to do, is just.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, what our audience can see about Joe that we just absolutely love is he excels in many things, but the two things that really stand out to us about him is he is an amazing tour guide. I think you saw he just took you on a global tour.
Yeah.
But he is also an amazing storyteller. And for us as a very small winery, almost everything that we sell from the winery is direct to consumer. There are very, 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 very few people that we trust to be able to tell our story and our winery story and explain it to people and explain what we do with the wines in a way that just it makes sense to average folks. Joe is gifted at that. And, you know, it's funny because when we first started, when we first met Joe, you were a tour guide. You were driving a tour. We had absolutely no idea who you were. You came in. We did nicely with the guests that you brought with you, and all nice. And Sarah came in, kind of, I guess, in the middle of all that. And Sarah and Joe started talking. And then toward the end of that, all of a sudden, Sarah turns to me and says, "Joe wants a couple cases for his wine bar." And I looked at Sarah and Joe and I said, "Wine bar? What?" And just, I mean, but it's, you know, we knew very quickly that this was somebody that we really wanted to be working with. His passion shows through it. It is every bit as much as the passion that we bring for what we do. And it's so important in this business to have that passion for it. I mean, we've said it all the time. You're not going to be rich, and well, I guess you might get famous, but you're not going to get rich doing this. Your benefit comes through the passion that you have, the relationships that you build. Joe is phenomenal. I've not met anybody like him. No. And, you know, there's a reason why we, and believe me, I tell people, and Joe also, you know, Joe will run into it, you know, when the wine bar was open, you know, customers would come in, Joe would recommend us, and next thing you know, I'm getting phone calls saying, "Hey, Joe from the Portland Wine Bar sent me." And it is truly an honor because Joe handles, you know, a good amount of wines. He knows his stuff. And so just to, you know, be able to be part of that network and high on the list, it is a privilege for us.
Well, and one of the things that we really appreciate, Joe, is that you're one of the few champions of small wine in the like, you know, as somebody who has the ability to pick wines to showcase, you're one of the very few that actually goes out and tries to find the unusual stories, the tiny places. You know, so many of them go to the big boys or the mid-sized guys, which there's nothing wrong with that. But, you know, a lot of times the little guys get, you know, we're just so small, we get overlooked. And so that is something I know that we appreciate, and I know several other people that you carry that also appreciate.
I love what, for me, it's become a buzzword again, which is fine, and I have no problem with it. But boutique. If you are a commercial producer, awesome. You probably got great fruit. You got a good winemaker. Great. I wish you nothing but the best. But I want to carry in my wine bars, in my personal wine library, I just want to carry the wines that are, you're not going to find. I mean, if you do a Google search for wine Willamette Valley, I guarantee you, there's 3 names that are going to come right to the top. Do they make bad wine? No, they make really good wine. But here's the thing. I want to go to the bottom of the list and see who's there. I mean, in addition to you guys, some of the others I love a lot of Chehalem Mountain wineries. I mean, and people doing some most unique stuff. I mean, why would we not want to, wait a minute, I could walk in to a winery off of Bell Road next to one of the older vineyards. I mean, geez, where you're located, there's a ton of beautiful fruit. And I could walk in there and I'm going to get like an hour with the winemaker who made the wine. Shut up. Right. No, seriously. That's what I tell them. I go, you're going to sit down with the winemaker. And I like to tell this is my favorite way of explaining it. There are many, many places that do by appointment only. And by appointment only in California means something very different than Oregon or Washington. Yeah. I like to say this. I said, you know, Dave's got a history and a background in tax and law. So here's the thing. You can take the guy out of the courtroom. You can take the guy out of the office, but you can't take the office out of the guy. He's going to be working in the vineyard. And if your appointment's at 1 o'clock, he's going to come in at noon. He's going to wash up, clean up, get presentable. Sarah's going to make sure he's got the right shirt that says Bells Up on it, and then winemaker on the other side. And he's going to put you in the forefront of his mind. He had just finished pruning. He just finished weeding, whatever, but he is going to go back and clean up. I go, that's why they're by appointment only, because they want to give you their undivided time. It's not about, because I've been at club release weekends and weekends where you guys have a ton of people. It's it's fun, but it's not easy trying to give every single person some winemaker attention or owner attention, if you will, because both of you have to do it. It's not just one of you, it's both of you.
Yeah.
And so that is the one thing. And I've got wood right down here. I'm knocking on wood. I am still batting 1,000 with every tour I bring to Bells Up Winery.
Aw, thank
Yeah.
you.
Batting 1,000. Nobody, I mean, whether they're still there, that's a different story. But I know that when I leave, I feel pretty dang good that you spent a good hour and some change with them. They love the wine. They walk out as members of the Fanfare Club, and I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, and it's always a privilege, and you know that's the nice thing. Tend to be folks that do these kinds of tours are people that are interested in the hidden gems, you know, and the places that they can't get where they live. But hey, good news, we can ship to you. So yeah,
That's the best news.
All right,
absolutely.
amen to that. So Joe, let's talk wine.
Let's talk wine.
I know
What
this
was that?
one of your favorites to drink, but least favorites to pronounce. So I'll do it for you.
it's you're not alone, Joe. I only get about 20% on this one.
Okay, it's Villanelle.
Yep.
See,
Yep.
Growing up in California, the double L becomes that Y sound. So
Oh
there-
yeah.
Oh, yep.
Like La Jolla. Right?
So yeah, exactly. So I always want to call it VNL, and it's like no, it's Villanelle,
You
Joe.
don't care what you call it as
Yeah.
long as you like it. But
Oh, I love
but
this.
yeah, Dave. This is one of Dave's super minimum production reserve wines. So
Yeah. So this one, and I'll just kind of give a little intro, and then I'm going to let Joe take over as far as talking about it, because fortunately, this is a lot of the stuff that goes on here are things that he knows real well, and he's perfectly capable of talking about it as well. This is a wine that I wanted to create in order to present the elegance as soft and silky as Pinot can get. And so what I do with this one, this is all the fruit here is from one single vineyard, and it's from the Sommelier vineyard. This is Mike and Julie Slater's vineyard. It's a tiny little 4-acre vineyard just outside of the town of Yamhill, which about 15 minutes roughly west of us. These vines are darn near 20 years old, and Mike does an amazing job just with basic maintenance in the vineyard and to get the quality of the fruit that we're looking for every year. There are 2 Pinot Noir clones that go into this particular grape, into this particular wine. And they go by the lovely lab names of 777 and 115. And there are 2 different clones, and it's about half and half of each. They perform 2 very different functions. But they offset each other. 777 performs most of its action in your front to mid palate. 115 is the exact opposite. It provides most of its action in the mid to back palate. So what you get when you put these together is sort of this great flow all the way through as you kind of feel it rolling across your tongue and then down your throat with a nice linger in the back. But the other thing about this that makes it special is this is 100% of what we call the free run portion of the juice, which is very different than I mean, I can't believe there aren't other people doing this in the Valley. There have to be, but I don't run across very many that market it that way. Mm-hmm. So for those of you that aren't familiar, which is many of you, don't worry about it. It's a term I did not know about until I started to get more into wine. Try to imagine you will get juice in 2 different ways. One is as you bring the fruit in from the field, you process the fruit. In our case, we knock the berries off of the stems, and the berries drop into our big plastic fermenters. Now, because Pinot has a very thin skin, we don't actually have to physically crush the grapes the way you do in some other big thicker skinned red grapes like Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, and so on and so forth. So we don't need to do that. We just let the berries drop in, and it doesn't take very long before the weight of the berries on the top start to crush the berries on the bottom. And so you will get a good amount of juice that way. And in fact, as I've sort of mathematically figured it out, it ends up being roughly 65 to 70% of the overall volume that we're going to get out of any out of any batch that we do with Pinot is going to come from that free run portion. So think about, there is no manual pressure being applied to the skins in order to get the juice. So when you think about tannins and you think about sort of the things that create the bitterness and astringency in wines, you're still going to have those, because during the period of fermentation, those chemical compounds that are in the skins are going to leach into the juice over 3 to 5 weeks, however long that process goes on. So you're still going to have that, but what you have is the softest ones, the most elegant ones. It's not big and heavy. So that's the free run. That's about 2/3 of the juice. Now, the other third comes when fermentation ends. And the first thing we do, so all the sugars in that juice have been eaten up by all the little yeast cells, and now there's nothing more to give. So primary fermentation at least is over. So what we do is we siphon the juice. What was juice is now wine out, and we put them into certain barrels. So those are what we call the free run barrels. Then we take the skins and everything that's left and we put them into the big press. And though that's sort of, when you imagine either a big fruit press, or if you've seen the large stainless steel presses with an inflatable bladder that a lot of wineries have, this is where I'm just kind of imagine you have a washcloth and you're just wringing out. So you're applying manual pressure now, you're wringing out the last bits of juice. Now, wonderful, wonderful stuff, but you're gonna get the tightest and the harshest of those tannins. Now, that represents, well, like say, only about 1/3 of the overall volume. So it's nice to be able to say, okay, hey, if I want to give a wine a little bit more body, a little bit more structure, I can add a little bit of this here and there, and I can make that work. And most of the wines that we make are blends of the free run and the press. Now, however, if you want to make a wine that is as elegant and silky as you possibly can to show that off, you would only use the free run portion, which is what we've done here with the Villanelle, which is the reason that it's special, very limited edition. We only make, it's about 50 cases a year, and it is something that we sell exclusively to our wine club members as sort of it's sort of a carrot, especially for out-of-towners that don't get a chance to do the events and the winemaker dinners and things that we put on here. You're getting something special and unique for being a member of the club, access to wine that other people just can't get.
No.
So I'll let you take it from here and walk us through his
I agree. My favorite aspect of the Villanelle is the fact that it is free run. In free run, there's maybe 4 winemakers that I know doing a free run version. Probably more than one got the idea from you, which is wonderful.
My God, I'm a trendsetter. That's a little scary.
Terrifying. Terrifying.
Hey, that's not a bad trend to start. Because for me, from a presentation perspective, when I'm sitting there with somebody at the bar and I will give them, let's say, 3 different Pinots, some people like that big, earthy, Pommard or Wädenswil Pinot that just has that chop, that weight. Lovely. Have I got a Pinot for you? And then you have people who enjoy, I just love the quality and the fineness that is Pinot. That just, it transcends things. Okay, then you want what I call the daily drinker Pinot, and that's right in the middle of the road. You make 3 different versions of Pinot Noir that I absolutely adore, and they fall in all these categories. So the first one I described, I would say the bigger, heavier, that's Candide for me. That's Candide.
Yeah.
The second one, that daily drinking Pinot that is just superb to taste, pairs with a lovely pork tenderloin with a little bit of spice, or you know what, slap a burger on the grill. This is going to be amazing. And it's delicious. And then we get to the goddess. There is something special about free run, and the easiest way to describe it to folks is simply put as this. If you consider Pinot Noir, which has some tannin, maybe a little bit of bite, some acid, some earth, some fruit, beautiful. That is the masculine form of Pinot Noir. But if you want a treat, you want a palate blessing, then you need the feminine form of Pinot, and that's Villanelle in this case. I've had a few others, but free run Pinot to me, and Villanelle is like such an encapsulating piece. It gets it. It gets that softness, the silkiness, the suppleness that the bigger ones lack. Yeah, they got great flavor and they're lighter than a Cab Sauv, but still give you tannic structure. They still give you flavor and dark fruit. But when you want silky and smooth, and this may not be a popular phrase, but when you want a sexy Pinot, this is what you want. This is what you're looking for. I mean, all the notes in this one, I mean, they probably didn't see this in the beginning. I'm going to show it now. Where's my camera here? Look at that. This is the top of, the bottom of the cork, if you will.
Yeah.
And look at all that beautifulness. I mean, the less intrusive you are with it, the more you let the wine do the wine thing.
Yeah.
It's going to sit in this bottle and just continue to beautify for years, especially in an unfiltered product. I mean, that's just letting it do what nature intended, continue to morph and smooth and soften. I mean, I can only imagine this. We are currently drinking the 2017.
Yeah, it is the 17.
And
It's young.
Yeah.
17s are gorgeous. They are one of the 17s across the board, whether you're talking that Villanelle style, the Titan style, or the Candide style, light, medium, or heavy, whatever you want to call them. All the 17s have just really been beautiful for me, in my opinion. And I'm loving it. This is going to age brilliantly. People go, yeah, but I should probably drink it in 2 years. It's like, why would you do that? You can, of course, it's beautiful. But watch what this thing's going to do in 5 years. This is going to be amazing. I don't care what anyone says. This is going to be amazing. Pinot does not have a short lifespan. Everyone thinks it has a short lifespan. That is the biggest misnomer in Pinot Noir. Pinot doesn't have a short lifespan. It's the initial winemaker who created it to have a short lifespan. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
It may not be popular, by the way, but
Well, it's interesting that you say that because there is that reputation of Pinot will not age, right?
No.
Maybe 10 years, like if you're lucky.
Yeah, if you're
right?
lucky.
A lot of people think that, and occasionally you'll hear someone say, "Oh, we were at a winery and they pulled out some 30-year-old Pinot and it was amazing."
Oh,
You don't hear that very much, but yeah, people think the bigger wines are the ones that are going to have staying power.
so you ready for this? Just a quick side story. A friend of mine did a party called Get It Before It's Gone party.
Okay.
And they pulled out a 1989, 1990 Irie Vineyards Pinot Noir.
Oh, I bet that was amazing.
Oh, it was stunning. I mean, David Lett was just Papa Pinot, was an amazing guy, really one of the founding fathers in Oregon for Pinot. And it held up to the test of time. Well, just for safety's sake, let's call it a 1990.
Yeah.
Last I checked, it's 2020, right?
Yeah.
1990, 2020, that's a 30-year-old Pinot.
It is.
Yeah.
Whew. And me being the geek that I am, when the bottle got down to about here, I kind of stashed it because I want to see. Let's give it 2 hours of open time to see what it's going to do. And I would pour little bits, take a sip. Oh, that's beautiful. 2 hours later, it was open. It was gorgeous. The expressiveness of the fruit, everything that for me symbolizes the 1990 or 1989 year. It was amazing. It's a time capsule. That's my passion here. This is a time capsule. You have captured 2017 in a bottle.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm so looking forward to this year's vintages for you because I'm here to tell you, I mean, I'm into the 5th month of 2020. I'd like to return it and start again, please, because I'm not happy with this year.
It's an interesting point, Joe, because, one of the things that, we could end up with the most gorgeous vintage in 2020 that we've ever seen. It's entirely possible.
Oh, yeah.
That's part of the thing we don't know. But what I wonder is when we eventually comes time to release the 2020 vintage and you put the bottle out, are people going to go through some sort of PTSD?
Well,
I don't know.
I can tell you one thing I'm going to be able to do is I'm going to go, smells like COVID-19. Has a little, ooh, I'm getting a little Corona on the nose.
As long as it doesn't smell like Lysol.
Right.
Oh, wait a minute. Hint of Clorox.
Some Clorox, some hand sanitizer, maybe a little
my
mask.
Oh,
Yeah. As long as it doesn't taste like Charmin, we're going to be fine.
yeah. But you know, and it is so true, because you know what you just brought up, Joe, is this idea. You know, we talked about it a little bit ago. It's storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
Even in a year like this, as many things as has happened, when it eventually comes time to put these wines in the bottle and to present them, it is in the context of the stories that we have.
That's right.
You know, in a couple of years down the road, when these things are released, you know, hopefully we've made a heck of a lot of progress towards beating this thing, but the stories will continue. And it, you know, the great thing, and I know it's one of the things you enjoy about wine, is just context. You know, every year being so different. 2017 in a bottle, you know, it's different from 16. You know, 2017, a year that cold, wet spring, you know, kind of like we're having a little bit this year. And then we had some rain in the middle of mid to late September to kind of close the ripening season down. And then for those of us that are local here, we probably remember that was the year in August when we had that heat wave that was 105, 106, 107, 108. And I think a lot of folks started heavily investing in HVAC systems at that point. But yeah, and all of that led to this kind of softness and but yet a brightness to it. I mean, you will definitely get more of a red fruit character in the 2017 wines, a little bit more of an acid, and it's not overwhelming, but it's just a nice little feature of the wines from that vintage.
And that's the beauty for me. We talked about it earlier about the commercial versus boutique. There's, again, nothing wrong with commercial, but I love how you embrace year after year after year the difference in the fruit. Same vineyard, same winemaker, same style. It's the fruit that changes and creates that lovely thing. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, had a delicious rosé from 2018 from a very small boutique producer. Loved it. Oh my gosh, we need more of this. And I was like, well, sold out, but you can get the 2019.
Yeah.
Well, what's it taste like? Well, it's going to have a little bit less residual sugar. She happens to like some sweetness in her wine. And I said, I can get you some if you want it. Well, I want to taste it first. And that's the beauty of the taster, which is wonderful. But that's the thing. Every year it's going to be a little bit different. And embracing that and taking it on is what I love. As the front face, the person who's pouring the wine on a regular basis, if I'm pouring the same wine every day, this is our 2017 rosé, this is our 2018 rosé, and it's identical. It's like, why not just have a dispenser that pours it? Because you don't need me, but I get to tell the story of what's going on. Well, this year, oh my gosh, let me tell you about 2020. Year started off amazing. Everyone thought this year was going to be a bang. Sales were up. Things were doing wonderful. Travel to China was huge. And then come March, everything shut down. And we worried for 2 months plus what's going to happen. And when we reopened 6-8 months later, wow, we couldn't have the fraternity, the familial, unless you were family. You couldn't tip a pint back with your buddy, except you had to put this robotic arm to grab the glass and extend it to cheers him. I mean, whatever's going to happen, but it's going to be the story. In 2020, I honestly believe, I think 2020 is going to be an amazing vintage. If it's anything like the weather is showing us, this has, in my mind, my favorite years in Oregon so far, 09 and 12. Those are my favorite Pinot years. It's taken me a long time. You're talking to a Bordeaux drinker. I mean, clearly, I love big reds, but man, have I embraced this Pinot. I love it. It took me 6 years to develop a Pinot palate. And I think 2020 is going to be somewhere between 2009 and 2012. It could be there. And you know what? What a bonus for you guys as winemakers that you could pull us out of this really dark spell we're in right now with beautiful fruit, beautiful wines, and turn 2020 into something we want to remember. Instead of
don't putting too much pressure
That's
on
a
me,
lot
man.
of pressure.
please. You're a former tax guy. This is not pressure. Good Lord.
This is fair.
If anybody can manipulate. It's
Yeah,
you.
no.
I mean,
no, it's,
Well, Joe, we tend to try to keep these to about 30 minutes because we don't want to take up your entire afternoon, but we've actually kept you longer than we meant to. But thank you.
I'm good. I'm in quarantine. I you know, what else am I going to do? But
oh my goodness.
I still got half a bottle. I'm going to be just fine.
You just keep going, man. Yeah, and but we're glad you like it so much. That is
Oh my God, it's beautiful. And just speaking on characteristics real quick, if you don't mind, Sarah. But as I smell this, I get that gorgeous. So one thing for whoever's watching us right now, I like to tell this story. Everyone usually gets their nose nearby and go, let's see if I could do it. Oh, that smells beautiful. No. Get your nose in your glass. Nobody's drinking it after you. Get in there and block one nostril and inhale. Block the other nostril
with the glass.
with the glass.
With glass.
And what you're going to get. So right now, my right nostril is really strong. And I'm getting, I mean, I can smell that unfiltered wine, Dave. Oh my God. I get that beautiful earthy lees that I'm smelling, just that skins, if you will, the little micro particles of skin and what everyone would call detritus, but I love it because it's all part of the fruit. But you get that in there. I mean, and it's beautifully clear. I mean, I could read through this thing if I had something to read.
And actually, Joe, let's take a second to kind of real quick talk about the idea of filtering wines, and sort of what it does and what it really doesn't do. And, for those of you that have had, a lot of our white wines and our pink wine, you'll notice that, when you just look at it, it is perfectly clear, shiny and bright. And for almost every white wine I have ever seen and rosé, these all go through a filter. Now, there are a lot of different types of filters, but what essentially they all have in common is that the little great bits, the little dead yeast cells, kind of all those little parts that are part of the wine that give the wine's character are stripped out in order to make a wine that is clear, essentially clear as a bell and shiny. In a white wine or a rosé, that can be done with, I'd say, you do lose some on it, but not as much as you're going to lose in a red wine. That process does what we call stripping the wine. Not hugely, but what it does is it removes some of those things that provide that mouthfeel and give you the flavor that just can get so deep particularly on a red wine. So I do not filter my reds, period. We go through a process where we called racking, which is when the wines are sitting in a barrel, the heaviest of those particles will drop to sink to the bottom over time. And what we'll do periodically, usually twice roughly while the wine is in the barrel, is we will siphon out all of the clean wine off of the top, and we'll leave sort of the heavier stuff in the bottom. And then we'll call return. We'll rack it back into the barrel and top it back up, and we'll continue to age it until it's ready to bottle it. But there are places that will filter reds. And Joe, I'll let you kind of give your opinion on filtered reds. Because
well, the first word that popped into my head on a true filtered red is it's like hospitalization. It creates this purely antiseptic concept. And that's not bad. And if you love filtering your wines, please don't stop, whoever's out there. That's your style. But you really, really lose the essence, part of the essence, not all of it, but part of the essence when you filter. Because that's That's the juice. Unfiltered, unfined. That is a true old world style. Because you got to think, when wine was really, I mean, let's go back 2,000 years, 3,000 years even. We don't have the filtration systems we have today. So even the best filtration system back there was probably like racking today. But the difference is you're taking away something that is inherently designed to be in this glass. Right. You know, whether you want to get technical and say you're losing some of those phenols or those beautiful fruit characteristics that give wine a positive, healthy image, if you will. If you filter it, you're just making it an antiseptic, beautifully colored, beautifully colored is really probably the biggest color, maybe a smell, but not much, because you're losing some of that nasal property that I love. Like I was just smelling it. I'm like, oh my God, I can smell it. My nose is so strong. You can ask anybody. My nose, it drives ex-girlfriends crazy because they're always afraid. But current girlfriend's probably very happy because the food that is made, I can smell it and I get all the essences, and oh my gosh, but that's what this is about. So if you strip something away and you were trying to have this with a beautifully made meal, you're losing that. I wrote a blog article just really quickly years ago, and I called it the trifecta. Wine by itself is wonderful. For the most part, we as humans by ourselves, unless you're a really horrible human, and there's been a few in history, Stalin, etc. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. So wine by itself is wonderful. Humans generally are pretty good by themselves, and food by itself is just beautiful. But if you put any two together, wow, that's awesome. Me and wine, I'm a good time. I'm just saying. Me and food, I've got the energy to carry on. But you put all three together, oh my gosh, you got the trifecta. You've got the human who appreciates the wine and is appreciating that beautiful dish. You put all that together, boom. It's the trifecta. And when you take an element away through the filtration process, you're losing one of the legs that this could stand on. So that's just my opinion.
What will you be making for dinner to go with what's left of your bottle of Villanelle there?
Oh, that's a very good point. I actually think that I'm probably going to do this. See, and this is going to detract from some people. A lot of people think Pinot would be better for pork or chicken or a light pasta. I'm actually thinking a nice, beautiful steak would be beautiful with this because of that quality that is still in the glass. A little bit of earth, a little bit of soil, a ton of smoothness. Oh, and then you get that beautiful red meat for me. Now, on the vegan side of things, we could do black beans. We could do a lot of things.
For days, sure.
Oh my gosh, you could do a little pasta puttanesca would be great with this. So, but for me, as I'm smelling this, I am really smelling a bigger, heavier, like a New York strip steak would be great. A New York, that'd be nice. I'm a medium rare guy, so I'd get that earthy.
I hear you, brother.
I'd get that earthy quality and then the soft suppleness of the wine.
Right.
That would be my pairing.
Medium rare guy.
Yeah. You know. I used to, my
t-shirt that says that Joe is medium rare.
I'm just medium rare. Medium rare or rare. I mean, I am just so rare.
You are rare, actually, and that was one of the reasons we appreciate you so much.
Well, I before you kick me off, because I will take all your time.
Hey, I paid for the package. We got 24 hours.
You are talking to a sommelier who has been locked up for almost 2 months and hasn't been able to serve anybody. It's killing me.
We're unleashing Joe.
Do not talk to the neighbors who had a hard time going to work on a Tuesday or on a Monday a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, your glass is empty. Here, let me help you. Oh my gosh, let me help you. With zero fear of over serving. Anyhow.
Yes.
Right.
I just think, I sincerely think that what you two have done, I know Oregon is not your home. I know that. And I'm good with that because A, you're not from California, and that's okay. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I say that as a joke. But I love the fact. Oh, I like that.
Well, that's where we're from, but this is our home now.
Ohio. But that's the beauty of what, I mean, there are no Oregonians, honestly, whose family, if you trace it back, were originally from Oregon. Very few. We have some native tribes. We have some native winemakers, by the way, that are coming on the scene. But here's the thing. We are a hodgepodge here in the United States, in the US. And the fact that you guys had a reason to come west from Ohio, that's outstanding. And you've made it your home. You've embraced it. I have to tell you, I know we're talking the Villanelle right now, but Saval Blanc, Dave. Helios.
Oh, it works? All right.
I'm just saying. Helios, just, these are the things. This is what bringing new blood into an area does. And that is honestly what I feel Bells Up has done. What you guys have brought to the area. I mean, we have, and I'm not going to mention names, but there's so many cookie cutters out there.
Yeah.
But what you're doing is you're bringing a passion, a zest, a verve for what goes into a glass. And it's re-injecting our neighborhood called the Willamette Valley. And I love that. I love that. We're seeing that, and mentoring is huge. I mean, one of the guys that I know is making a free run that we've talked about, Dave. We won't call him out just because.
Good.
But here's the beauty. That's called mentorship. And you are mentoring the next round, and ideally he's going to mentor somebody else. And then the next thing we're going to get this 20-year-old kid who's been making wine since he was 16, who is just winning platinum awards and 100-point James Suckling, this all because people invested into their life. And that's what I love about you guys. You have zero qualms about investing back in to where you're from, to your people, your not just your club members, but anybody who walks through the door. When I send people to you, and I know I'm rabbit trailing like crazy, but when I send people your way, the one thing I love is usually they're here for 4 or 5 days, and then they'll come back and check in with me and tell me how their trip was, how their wine tasting was. And without a doubt, Dave and Sarah, you guys get, out of 5 stars, you get 5 stars. Nobody's ever had a bad time. And that makes it so much easier to go see Dave and Sarah. Go see Dave and Sarah. Because number one, you're going to get something that is off the beaten path. You're going to get an amazing product. You're going to get it full of passion, full of life, full of zest. You're going to get what you came for. Yeah. You came to Oregon to taste beautiful wine. Yeah. And you get to meet the winemaker. And if the rare occasion happens, you get to meet the real boss. Cupcake.
Yeah. Money honey extraordinaire.
Yeah.
Well, not just money honey, but cupcake.
Cupcake, I believe. Who is not with us here at the winery today because
that is okay, because you guys would be over your time frame.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Well, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me,
brother. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much.
Well, as long as you keep making really good wine, I'm going to keep selling really good wine.
I'm on it.
Hey, I'd like to say that today was a bells up moment. Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
Thanks, Joe. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. And thanks everybody for tuning in. We'll look forward to seeing you next Saturday, same time.
Yep. And next Saturday we have Instagrammers, Wino Kristen and Haley of Haley's Cellar together. And they're going to talk rosé. So
rosé all day.
Rosé season, hashtag.
Exactly.
Thank you, Joe. We appreciate it.
All right.
My pleasure. Thanks, guys.
We'll talk to you all very soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye now.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.